everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Universe Within podcast. This episode of the show is being sponsored by my friends over at a company called Real Mushrooms, realmushrooms.com. Sky Chilton and his father, Jeff Chilton. I interviewed Jeff a number of episodes ago. Really interesting guys. I really enjoyed that conversation with Jeff. And it's a company that sells and distributes medicinal mushrooms in powder or capsule form. I was really happy to have these guys come on. I think they were very much in alignment with the values of the podcast. As you all know, a big part of this podcast is about plant medicine, holistic medicine, and I think the benefits of medicinal mushrooms are truly fantastic, and I think there's really a growing body of work that's really showing and alluding to all of the amazing properties that mushrooms have. They sell a lot of different mushrooms, things you've probably heard of, like reishi, chaga, lion's mane, turkey tail, cordyceps. Those are all mushrooms I work with. They're part of what I consider for myself a really holistic supplement regime. And the thing I really love about their company, not only are they really good guys, I think they're really ethical guys, but the product is really amazing. It's all 100% mushrooms. They're organic, and that's really rare. For better or for worse, the supplement industry is highly unregulated, and so often when you get supplements, you don't necessarily know what you're getting. You may be getting some mushroom, you may be getting a bunch of fillers and other things. Oftentimes, even when you're buying what may be a mushroom, it may not have any of that mushroom in it at all, unfortunately. Even some of the big, I think even the biggest company that sells mushrooms, actually it's not the fruiting body, not the mushroom itself. It's the mycelial, which is grown on grain, and then those things are mixed up and then sold in a supplement form. So not only are you not getting the mushroom itself, you're getting the mycelium mixed with grain. So it's one of the amazing things of Real Mushrooms is it's exactly that. It's real mushrooms. So it's 100% mushrooms, organic. So you're getting a really good product. You're getting the actual fruiting body, the mushroom itself, 100% of that. And again, just really great guys. I'm really happy to have them on and supporting this podcast. So if you'd like a really good product, you'd like to start working with medicinal mushrooms, check out their site, realmushrooms.com. And also listeners of this show, if you go to their site, realmushrooms.com/universe, you get 25% off your first order, which is a really good deal. And I think once you start working and tasting their products, you'll really see and feel a big difference. So thank you to them. And I think that's it. And without further ado, here is the intro to the show. On this episode of the podcast, I sat down with Remi and Ashley. They own a plant healing center in the Yucatan Peninsula called Kumankaya. I had known about Remi for quite a number of years. He studied at a Ayahuasca healing center, plant medicine healing center outside of Iquitos in the Peruvian Amazon called Niwerao. I also interviewed Joe Tafur, who was one of the founders of that place, as well as my friend Marta, who both worked there. So I knew about Remi from them. Someone else who I interviewed, who I was trying to think and I can't remember, also spoke very highly of him. And then recently, a mutual friend of theirs, Nick, reached out to me to set up an interview with them. So I was very happy to have them on. They both spent a long time living, working at, and studying with the main Shipibo healer there, whose name is Ricardo Amaringo, I believe. I've been to the center. I thought they were doing amazing work. So I was really happy to have them both on. They're now a couple. They run this plant medicine healing center. And we sat down and we talked about their backgrounds, their paths. Remy had a really interesting path. He was actually a monk in a monastery for many years, and then eventually came to ayahuasca with the Shipibo. Ashley had a similar journey in that she was working in the States, and then through a kind of a series of events of maybe not being so content, ended up at the same center, and that's where they met. They went through a long initiation apprenticeship program and eventually started working. So it was a really beautiful conversation. I think they both speak very eloquently of this work of the path of traditional medicines, specifically with Shipibo. We spoke about cosmovisions and medicine, ayahuasca, a lot of really interesting topics. I think they speak from a place of a very deep knowledge, and it's always an honor to have people like that on. So I think and trust you'll get a lot from this episode. As always, if you're able to support this podcast, that's a really big help to me. Patreon is a really good option. It's a website you can sign up for as little as $1 a month. There's different tiers you can sign up for. Those tiers give you different things back, things like early access to shows, bonus material, Q&As. As always, to all the people supporting that way, thank you very much for your support. It's really what allows me to continue making these episodes. If you're not able to do that, helping with the algorithms is also super beneficial. So if you're viewing this on YouTube or Rumble, hitting the subscribe button, turning on the notification bell, liking the video, and if you're listening to this, Apple Podcasts and Spotify are the biggest platforms. Leaving a starred rating and a short review is always very helpful. Also, myself and my colleague Merav Artzi, we just finished a plant medicine dieta here in the Sacred Valley of Peru. We have another one coming up in February of the upcoming year. Although when this is released, it will probably already be the upcoming year, probably sometime in January. We're almost sold out for that right now, so by the time this comes out, we may be sold out, but you can always check on my site, nicotianarustica.org. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. And then we also have 2 upcoming dietas after that in Europe, one in Portugal towards the end of April, and one in Ireland, I believe the 1st of July. And both of those, we still do have space left. So if you're interested in going deeper into the world of plants, of dieting, of learning experientially from plants, specifically through the medium of tobacco, it's a really beautiful opportunity. So I think that's it for the introduction. Without further ado, here is my conversation with Remi and Ashley. Running out from the maze, running out of the maze today. Running out from the maze, running out from the maze, running out from the maze today. I'm running out from the maze, running out from the maze, run out of the maze today. So good. So welcome. We were just briefly chatting a bit before about some of our backgrounds, but for the audience, Remi, I had heard about you through probably actually 2 people who've been on this podcast, Joe Tafour and Marta, who I think knew you or worked with you at a quite a well-known Shipibo plant healing center called Niwairao. And I always heard very good things about you. And recently, maybe a mutual friend of yours reached out to me. His name is Nick. So also to give him a little bit of credit, and he kind of bridged this conversation. So I'm really excited to have you guys on. As always, maybe to start, Ashley and Remi, if you'd like to just share with the audience a little bit about who you are, your story. I would imagine some of the audience has probably heard of you both, maybe also heard of the center you're working at, but just to kind of give some background about yourselves, who you are, your story, and what brought you to do this work.
Well, thank you so much for having us. We're very happy to be here today. And so, you want me to start? So, my personal background is a little original in the sense that I entered into a monastery when I was very young, at 17 years old, where I spent 20 years of my life in a monastic, Christian monastic life. And at some point, my life took a little turn, and that's when I orientated myself towards the plant medicine and be more help of people. Then during this past, I met my wife, Ashley, and few years down the road, being together, we came here to Mexico to create a Kumankaya, or our little place where we work at this retreat center here. We work exclusively with ayahuasca and master plant diet now for years, and that's what we're dedicated to it. That's where our joy is and our freedom and our service to.
Um, I think my story is a little bit more common. I was a college professor. Um, this is up until about 2015, and I had everything that I wanted. I had the job, I had gotten a degree, and I gotten a job. I had the house, and just I kind of accomplished everything that I wanted, but there was absolutely no connection to my life. There was no joy in my life, and so that kind of started a little bit of I guess a healing journey for myself, trying to figure out what's going on. What if this is the apex of my life and I don't enjoy it, I don't like it, and so I ended up going to Nepal and Tibet and meditation yoga retreats and did these like long excursion hikes in the Himalayas, try to find um Jaime's connection with life, really. And it wasn't until December of 2015 where I decided to actually start healing. Go try ayahuasca, do a short master plant diet, and kind of work on the fundamental issues of me, why I can't connect to my world, my life. And um, the first 10 days, as you've mentioned, at the realm, at spiritual central, was so profound, was so healing. I thought, I got to go deeper. I got to go back. And so I went back the following summer, June of 2016, for 2 months to go for a deeper healing immersion, and that's when I met Remy, and so he was already much more advanced on his path, and so though my journey for the next, I would say 5 years was still pronounced healing, very much healing, but, it definitely escalated once I met Remy, and so, he moved to the States, I think in 17 in 2017. And at that time, we were working a lot in the States. We were doing legal ceremonies in Kansas and in Michigan and for around like 6 hours, doing 3 nights of ceremonies. And Monday morning, I was back in the classroom teaching. And we finally one day said to ourselves, you got to choose a path. We either going to stay here and really embed ourselves in Midwestern life and um, you know, probably have a family and just kind of go that route, or we've got to make a dramatic change to our lives and devote our lives to the medicine. And so that's when we decided to sell everything, pack up a 1984 Chevy camper with our dog in tow, and drive down to Blue Lake Barrier Porto and uh, start building Kumankaya.
Yeah, amazing. So maybe Remy, we'll start with you. So you said kind of initially what got you interested in this path was you ended up in a Christian monastery. Can you speak a bit about that? I mean, what was there some calling in you since a young age to Christianity or to isolation, to that path? I mean, that's quite a unique path, especially in this day and age. I don't think there's too many people joining monasteries.
So yeah, indeed, it was a true calling. At 17 years old, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I was drawn to solitude. I was drawn to the silence, and also I had many experiences in my life that led to this point where I want I received the calling, if you want, and so I was having questions in my heart. The main one was, if there is such thing as a God, I have to meet him first, and then after that you can move on with your life. For me, it was absurd not to start with it. So it's hard to explain, because the mind of 17 years old, a young man, and the mind of a 46 years old man like I am now are not the same, are not as sophisticated, as nuanced. And so my mind at this time was just having the sense that my maximum freedom it was to answer this question in my heart that I was having to meet God if there is such thing as a God. And it took me 20 years. And after 20 years, I left the monastery not for a problem of faith, but for I needed to discover more. And also I felt a little bit encapsulated in some kind of ivory tower where I'm like praying for the world, but not doing much for it. And so I felt that the need of being more on the ground with the people sharing their load and trying to give my contribution actually visibly to the community. And that's one of the main reasons of my leaving the monastery. So yes, that was first a calling for like a very exclusive spiritual life. At 17 years old, I had a life before that. I was a normal teenager with girlfriends, with experimenting some psychedelics. I mean, like really the regular type of life for everybody. And at some point for me became exclusive. That's what I want to do. I want to dedicate my life exclusively to deepen my relationship to God and to finding answers, metaphysical answers. And so that led me to this path of developing my spiritual life and then the plant medicine, which for me are not separated.
And so what was that change when you decided to leave the monastery and you found plant medicine or ayahuasca? um, did you realize that that was the end of your time at the monastery, or was it more of an experimentation and then something awakened in you that realized this was more my path? How did that transition
No,
happen
no,
for
no,
you?
no. It's not as marked, it's an organic process. So yes, indeed, I was realizing, I would say for about 2 years before I left that yes, something has changed. And my heart wasn't into the lifestyle of monastic lifestyle anymore. I acquired the spine, the mental metaphysical structure that I needed, that I was seeking. And at some point, it became the monastery wasn't helping me to elevate, but it was more of a limitation for me in a way, if I can translate it this way. And so it took years to get there, to get to the point. At first, you're struggling with your own desire of living the monastic life, and you and so I used the plant medicine actually to try to help me understand what was happening for me in my monastic life. And maybe to get anxious to keep going in my monastic life. But the answer I get was different. It was I have to choose a different path. And basically I went from the monastic life to the jungle where I did those very, very, very long, extensive apprenticeship diet, traditional diets. And so I went from a monastic life to I always say as a joke that I left a monastery made of stone and I found a monastery made of trees.
And what was that early experience like for you? I mean, you said you had worked with some maybe psychedelics, but kind of being in that monastery of the jungle, monastery of trees, beginning to work with ayahuasca, beginning to work with other plants. Was there something that kind of felt like home, or that there was a remembering, or that there was something that you felt was putting you closer in touch to God, or it was a path that somehow resonated with you? I mean, I think it's a very common experience when, maybe as Ashley was saying, like there can often be something very healing or very revelatory. But what was it about that particular path that drew you into it? And because obviously it's a big part of your life now.
Yes. Yes, I mean, what was for me was more, to be very honest with you, before ayahuasca, I was already having a life. I was already having I felt really um, good within myself. I felt at peace within myself. But what ayahuasca gave me is this incredible curiosity for his process. What the knowledge I was gaining from the plant. So at the monastery, at the same time, at the monastery, I did some studies. I'm a doctor in philosophy. I did 7 years of philosophy, 5 years of theology. and 3 years of musicology. So I have 15 years of university background. And when I arrived to the jungle, the whole idea was, to have a dialogue interspecies with vegetal consciousness. Yeah, tell me about it. I was very, very uh, skeptical about that. And my whole philosophical point was like, okay, I'm going to go there to experience if it's true or not. And with the secret idea of prove them wrong, that it's not real, that it's some kind of delusion or whatever. And I never left. And so this knowledge that I gained and this real contact, almost physical in a way, physical contact with a vegetal consciousness and a different type of consciousness than mine has created in me such a drive, such a thirst for this knowledge that I was gaining. So my reason was really the knowledge, the curiosity, what I was experiencing through those experiences of dieting and the plant, what I was discovering about myself, about the world. It didn't change my relationship with God because it was already there. It was already there and very well established and very well big inside me. So it was more, if you want, of of the rest. And also when I went to Peru, I wasn't there to learn to become a practitioner. I never wanted to become a practitioner, but with the very first ceremony I had over there, very unexpectedly, I had an experience that really told me this is where you are to be, and this is what you're supposed to do for the next certain amount of time. And so for me, it was again the story of my life. And one day I was 17 years old. I arrived at this monastery, and I felt like, okay, this is it for you. This is where you're supposed to be. This is what you're supposed to do, even if I never planned on. So I did that for 20 years. I quit the monastery. I arrived in Peru, and the first ceremony is like, okay, this is what you're supposed to do. This is where you're supposed to be, and this is what you're supposed to learn now. So it's been very, in a way, very, very simple. Those two main chapter. I mean, I had the childhood and teenage time before, but the two main chapter of my adult life was like monastic life, and then now helping people to the plant-based medicine, ancient medicine.
Yeah, beautiful. And so, Ashley, for you, you were speaking more that maybe there was a discontent with life. You were going in a certain direction. Maybe that wasn't fulfilling you, and you also ended up at Niuerao.
Mm.
Maybe can you speak a bit about what that journey was like for you? I mean, I think it's quite a common story. People coming from more of a Western, maybe American background, um, and then ending up in the jungle and having a very deep healing or a very deep revelatory experience. What was that? What was kind of that primary experience like for you? And only speaking in whatever detail you like, but was there something you really felt you learned, you gained, you healed? Maybe just to speak a bit about that.
Mhm. I think I mentioned earlier about going to the fall into bed. That's really why I marked a huge change in my life. Um, because I realized up until that point, but I was waiting for something to happen to me, for my life to change. I don't know if I was waiting at that point. I was waiting for, I don't know, the big realization or something from the outside to shift. And I remember, it was, I think, like 4 AM in my office at the university, and I thought, like, you stop waiting for life to happen to you. You have to start living life. And I booked my flights, and so that was really for me the big turning point of where I started finding more agency in my life for my own happiness, for my own life experience, I guess. I wouldn't even say healing was definitely starting to become kind of a peripheral idea where I knew something was very dissonant between myself, my internal experience, myself, and the world. Um, the what was happening in my outside world wasn't matching my internal life because everything seemed good on the outside, but internally was I was suffering. I guess is the best way to say it. I was just very unhappy, very lonely, and suffering, and couldn't quite figure out what would be my next steps because everything, all my goals have been accomplished. So what's next, And um, it was really interesting that it's really interesting how the medicine works because, I'm from a very small town in the Midwest. So it's a pretty isolated community. And um, I'd never heard of ayahuasca until that year. Just started kind of I heard it conversations or I come across a podcast or it would be an article in National Geographic or something like that, National Geographic. And so I started trying to come across it and started kind of researching it and looking into it as I think it was more I was interested in, consciousness expanding experience. I wanted to get beyond my own mind. I wanted to look at my life and myself from a different perspective, and that was really appealing to me, and I didn't quite understand, the healing potentiality of the medicine or how it worked. I just, had experimented with psilocybin and different consciousness expanding medicines. And they were very beneficial for me. But of course, I used them recreationally. I didn't understand how to use them in a healing ceremonial context, in that a very sacred context. But I did know that those gave me a new perspective, and it only momentarily they alleviated kind of the internal suffering that I was experiencing. And um, earlier, I had been waitressing at a small cafe called Pablo's Cafe in Carbondale. While I was doing my PhD, I would wait tables from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. do kind of the early morning shift. And there was a young man, an older man, excuse me, that used to come in there. And we became friends throughout time. And we used to go to a lot of bluegrass festivals together and, of course, go blood campus together. And he had actually wrote me and said, I really want to go down to Peru and drink ayahuasca. Will you come with me? I thought this is it. This is my opportunity. And so, because he was in his 70s, I was really interested in going to Nia Rao because at the time Joe Topper was a resident there. And it was really important to me that an MD was on site because my friend was a much older individual. And so, when we went down there, I had no idea what to expect. In fact, it was, I just, honestly, I guess I just thought it was just gonna be, a really interesting experience taking a strong hallucinogenic in a jungle. And I remember my first night, I thought, "Oh my gosh, what have I got myself into? This is extraordinary." And very quickly did I realize that it is an extremely sophisticated, in fact, a very advanced technology. The songs, the works the shamans do, the visions, not hallucinations, the visions that come with the medicine, the way the medicine works in your body, the way it kind of excavates emotions and memories and different um, energies stored in the soma. I realized right away that this is something that's quite incredible. In fact. This is much more than I ever bargained for. And at that time, I died morosa for 10 days. And I remember having this sense of a deep, deep sense that I could really trust myself. I remember thinking one night, you're the one that got yourself here. You're the one that knew there was so much more to life. At 34, you're the one that decided not to settle. Because for most, I think most people in the world, this is you kind of flatline. You accomplish your goals and then you flatline. And then this is life. This is it. And then you try to acquire more goods or you try to accumulate more material possessions to fulfill that vacancy inside of you. But I actually had that sense of like, no, actually, that wasn't enough for you. And it wasn't acquiring the material goods and acquiring more assets. It was there had to be something shift on the inside, right? You don't need more on the outside. You need more on the inside, in fact. And I remember having that ceremony where I just felt immense amount of love and trust in myself because even though it felt like the strangest place on the planet and millions of miles away from a little small town in the Midwest, I really felt like I had one of the most positive things for myself, one of the greatest acts of self-love that I ever did myself, which is to try to heal whatever was causing the disturbance inside of me, the dis-ease inside of me. So, yeah, very And in fact, it's really interesting how the the feedback loop where the external world because I felt different. I felt this huge shift had happened. But I remember going back home to my small little town in the little community in Illinois, and everybody saying, "What has happened? You are completely different. You're completely different." So I remember that it wasn't just I felt different. I was like starting to live my life differently, so much so that my family, my friends noticed it right away.
Yeah. So you both ended up at a plant healing center, Niue Rao. Um, I've been there a couple times, so I'm a little bit familiar with it. But from what I know of it, Joe helped to found it. Marta was there. The head curandero ayahuasquero Onaya, I believe, is Ricardo Amaringo, if I'm correct. Um, he's a Shipibo man. Can you speak? I mean, a lot of people listening to this, I'm sure, have worked with ayahuasca, but for sure, there's people who haven't. There's people who've maybe worked with it, maybe more in a setting of a city or, maybe more non-indigenous settings. What is that? What does that experience look like working in the jungle? Outside of Iquitos and Yanchama and kind of this Amazonian basin, working with a traditional healer who's coming from a family of healers. You arrive there, you're working in this lineage, this Shipibo lineage. There's songs, there's food restrictions. Maybe just to give people a kind of a bit of an overview of an insight of like, what does that process look like when someone comes to work at a place like that?
So indeed, it's a whole inclusive experience, but not in a way that we understand it nowadays with the all inclusive hotel. I mean by that all your senses are going to be challenged. Everything is different. There's a river. They live close to this river. There's a descent on land. They are living and choose. They have this culture which is very different than us, and so it's a whole like existential jet lag that you're put in. And in fact, I think it's a very important part of it because you put yourself in a place where all your little habits or securities are not present and you're fully open to the experience. And then they serve you this very, very strong brew made of two plants, the ayahuasca pine and the chapuna leaves, that is going to show you your life, show you what you've done, show you your emotions, the true nature of your emotions, show you many, many different things and why they're singing in this incredible language, which is the sea people. So yes, the experience that you can expect when you go there, it's a true life-changing experience in the sense that is going to challenge every aspect of your. There's no car on site. It's a deep immersion in the jungle. And the jungle in itself is hypoactive. Just arriving in the jungle without taking any medicines, you feel different. Your dreams are different. Your awareness is different. Your connection to the now is different. And so all of that create this sensorial context in which you're going to have to rediscover yourself free from all the cosmetics of our modern world.
It's really interesting too, because the specific retreat center we talk about near Rao, you actually go to a village, this a small little village. They have their own little shops. The shamans and their families, they live on site. Plus the workers, most of their families, if they're not at near Rao proper, they're at Young Shaman, like you mentioned, right around the corner. And so it's really interesting to be faced, and we always talk about that as we live in Mexico, because you're faced with like the reality of lack in most Latin American countries, which on some level is poverty, right? But you don't see the level of suffering that you see in the States. And then you walk around and everybody's laughing, everybody's joking, everybody's the children are playing, and they have nothing, but you still see this level of community, this level of support, this level of joy all over the place that really helps you kind of reevaluate your priority system and really evaluate your value system yourself because you think and we need more to be happy. And right in front of you, immediately you see that that's not the case at all. In fact. And it's also, and as Remy said, it's kind of like sensory experience because you're eating very, very basic food. And so usually it's no salt, it's no sugars, no oils, so very basic food. More than less, you're fairly sleep deprived. And then I haven't met too many people that have gone there that are in the best shape of their lives. So they're usually going there because they need help with something, right? And so it's always yeah, just kind of this interesting mix of individuals. As he said, this kind of existential jet lag is happening as well. This cultural shock that's happening. On top of, consuming 4 times a week, one of the strongest psychedelic brews on the planet, listed blues, right? So, yeah.
So, um, again, I would imagine a lot of people are familiar with ayahuasca, but for people who aren't, or maybe they have a peripheral knowledge of it, what is ayahuasca? How would you describe that? What does it mean to you? What does it do? Like people often describe it as medicine. Do you have a sense of why they use that word so often with it?
So ayahuasca is used. So first, medicine. It's not a Shipibo word. It's a Spanish word. The medicina. The actual Shipibo don't have this word medicina. It's a different term. But the ayahuasca is made of 2 plants. The vine of ayahuasca that gives the name also to the brew, and the chacruna leaf of this shrub that we use the leaf. And I like the way the ancient described it is that the vine contains a certain amount of knowledge, life knowledge, knowledge about the earth, knowledge about the river, knowledge about the animals, about the stars, contains the knowledge. The ayahuasca vine is the book. And the chacruna leaf is the light that allows us to read the book. And so what you can expect when you drink the brew of ayahuasca, you can expect some very strong physical reaction. It's also the second name of the medicine, la medicina, is la purga. La purga, it means in Spanish, the purgatory. So it's based on this very ancient understanding of the medicine that we heal by purging out our disease, by purging out our parasites, whether they are like physical or even emotional or mental patterns. Why how we heal them by purging them out. And I think in all the ancient medicines all around the globe, the main essential aspect of the medicine is to purge. Whether we were doing some blood extractions in ancient Greek and ancient Roman medicine, or like supersections with those, I don't know, you in Chinese medicine, and to everything is to make you sweat out, purge out the disease, the discomfort, and all those yes, those disease that we have in our life like that. I think it's very important to understand that on our trauma, everything that we do in our life is around us, as an immaterial energy. And to be able to move on in life, we need to feel lighter. And so we have to purge those energy. And those immaterial energy needs a physical vehicle to be released, which is the purging. It can be actually vomiting, it can be going to the toilet, it can be sweating, it can be crying, it can be yawning and shaking. All those different type of physical reaction is to put the body in a place of more space in life and more ease in life to really re-encounter the natural flow and genuine flow of life and to welcome it and embrace it. Once you're in this space, after having past this physical aspect, then you have more the visionary aspect, which are not hallucinations. It's not what we can describe as hallucination because sometimes the visions are common. It's very, very common with Ashley that we have the exact same vision in ceremony without even consulting each other. So it's not something that is an hallucination. You take a strong hallucinogenic substance, and you want to have some fantasy vision or fantastic vision. Well, that's not like that. This ayahuasca. The ayahuasca vision, ayahuasca is best. It's going to show you about your life. It's going to show you about the nature of your human being, the nature of your own self. It's going to teach you how to become how authentic human being. It's very interesting that all the indigenous tribe of the Amazonian jungle that use the ayahuasca, whether in Peru, in Colombia, in Brazil, in all the different aspects of the ayahuasca use uh, in those tribes, they all pretend to be the authentic people, the authentic human being. And so I really believe that the ayahuasca showed you what it's like to be an authentic human being. Fully, at least, if not fully accomplished, not fully realized, at least on the path of this authenticity, of this fullness, and also of this perfect, um, how can I say that, perfectly rooted in this place in the great universe, in his sport, in his personal sport, in the great whole, That's what a fully authentic human being is. And ayahuasca is teaching you that. First, you have to go through the trauma of life, the addiction of life, the fault that everybody does during their life. You have to go through all those layers. You get to the point where you get the clear understanding of who you have to be, and in order to walk on the earth in a very dignified way and in all being family.
Yeah, beautiful. Anything you'd like to add to that, Ashley, or that felt complete?
Another talk breaking me. You need to do
Okay.
that.
And so it's interesting because I think, Ashley, you mentioned in the beginning you came for a lot of healing, and I think that's a very common theme of something that draws people to ayahuasca is they're essentially suffering in some way, whether it's physical suffering, mental emotional suffering, some spiritual suffering, not feeling fulfilled, feeling whole. Um, but it's interesting, like as you said, Remy, in Spanish, often they'll use that word la medicina or la purga, but the Shipibo word for ayahuasca is quite interesting, uni, and someone who works with it is an unaya, and often that's translated as some idea of like sabiduría, like knowledge or
Huge
wisdom.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very rare, I think, unless people are familiar with that they use a word like knowledge, which you also used in the beginning, like kind of your own curiosity, your own search for knowledge. And yet so many of these kind of traditional or sacred plants often have some idea of knowledge behind them, of this search for something. Is that something you can speak about, and how that comes together with this idea of medicine or purging, with this idea of maybe how the Shipibo look or name the word ayahuasca?
It's very interesting what you said, because it's really if you want, we have to be able to talk about different aspects that are rationally and logically not really not they are not compatible, but they are not like linked to each other, but that in fact despite the same reality is from different lens of the same reality. And when a people say that he's going to drink the medicine, he doesn't say I'm going to drink the medicine. He say I'm going to drink the ancient wisdom to him myself, the uni. Uni is the ancient knowledge, the ancient wisdom, the ancient advice. The advice is to the ancient. So for them, there's many different aspects. Like, oh, why do I need to drink this ancient wisdom? To heal myself. First thing first is because, as we just mentioned, I feel disconnected from the world and from also my lineage, from where I come from the one who was like in before me that I've like experienced this ancient wisdom. I've making grown, that I've developed it. And if I want to heal myself, I have to carry the same beautiful thoughts that they have, the same beautiful, the same strong thoughts that they have, so I can heal my life, which means walk an authentic life, walk a good life, a life-giving life, if I would say. And so, and but when we drink, excuse me, when we drink the ayahuasca, it's also because for the Shipibo, they understand that the disease is some kind of a consequence of a spiritual disconnection. A spiritual disconnection within ourselves, but also, more importantly, inside the entire cosmos. And it's a loss of contact with the supra-sensible world of the spirit of the planet. It's not just living like that our life on a daily basis, but it's to know that our life as an echo, also in some suprasensible part of the world that are beyond our senses. And so when we drink this ancient wisdom, we reconnect all the spark of ourselves. We are body, physical body, we are an emotional body, we are a spiritual connection to God, and we are also a presence inside all the different layers of the universe, the visible, the invisible, the sensible, the suprasensible. And this ancient wisdom that we drink, this umi that we drink in us, because it prepares again as the link between all those different layers of the world. As the ancient would say in Latin, the axis mundi, the axe of the world, is not something else than just man or woman. You understand? And so this ancient wisdom that we drink in us from all those, what we translate now in modern world, those disconnections, all those little disconnections, all those little dissociations that are finally becoming, if we don't do anything about it, they become gaps, and they become kind of a way to vacuum instead of those connections, some other stuff that would replace them. And when we don't have those connections to the nature, to the suprasensible world, what we replace them with is with darkness, depression, fatigue, and everything. That's where the disease comes from. So indeed, your question is very interesting, because breaking this ancient wisdom, it's also mentioning and actually a very interesting and sophisticated background of understanding what the disease is, what is the nature of the disease, and how can I heal it. And basically, what the Shipibo are telling us in other terms that we translate in our modern concept is that the healing is complete, not when there's no more pain, but when there is prevention.
Yeah. So one of the interesting things I always found it very interesting when I was working at the Temple of the Way of Light is almost everyone came down to work with ayahuasca. That's what they heard about. That's what they knew. That's the kind of all of the information was about ayahuasca. But people were often surprised when maybe they'd be speaking with the healers, the maestros, and they would start speaking about other plants that they work with, other plants that they diet, plants that they're calling on in ceremony, walking around the forest and kind of seeing this pharmacopoeia of knowledge, of wisdom, of different medicinal plants. Is that something you can speak about, like medicine in general, or plants in general, and how you all, or maybe the Shipibo who you learn from, how they view all of these different plants, the different plants in their place in kind of this axis mundi, and also where and how particularly ayahuasca fits into that.
Mm. I
I
think
mean, for example, like Ashley, you mentioned you did a dieta with marosa. Like I would imagine some people have heard of that plant. Probably most people haven't, but I would imagine some people would listen to that and be like, "Well, you went to an ayahuasca center and you're working with some plant called marosa. Why would you be working with that?"
No, and I think a lot of people come to a retreat center like ours or keep away like taking ayahuasca. But I'm pretty sure the healers are thinking massive moves. And I think that's probably how Ricardo and Marinko works. That's how we work at our retreat center. Is if you can give us 10 days, it's all about the master plant diet. The way we explained it to our guests is if ayahuasca is a general doctor, then the master plants are the specialists that it called it. And as you said, it was this massive, ancient pharmacopoeia of master plants that are at our resource to help people. There's one homemade that's on a very physical level. That's a parasitic cleaner, the emotional and mental parasitic cleaner. It's a great for addiction, drug addiction and morosis, really great for certain things as well. All these different master plants and trees have all their specialty that they can help people with. And so for us, it really is about the master plants. If we can get on board master plant, um, um, as an ally for us for our healing, an ally for the guests when they leave here, we believe and we feel, we see also that the healing is exponential for the
I think what's fascinating also is that not only the Shipibo Konibo, but Shipibo Konibo probably the most are the one who have like developed that aspect to the more the most advanced state. But many other tribe of the indigenous um, so people of the Amazonian basin, their entire cosmovision comes from their contact with the plant medicine. It has been inspired by the knowledge that they came through dietas, through learning with the plant, and that's how they build their cosmovision, their vision of the world. So basically, in the Shipibo Konibo tradition, there's no such thing as a tradition because it's an oral, very uh, organism that have this knowledge of Shipibo Konibo. But basically, their knowledge is just the translation through a dialogue interspecies between someone who take a plant and a plant consciousness as a going to create a knowledge and an understanding of the world. And that's fascinating for me. It's a extremely advanced technology, not just on the level of the metaphysical point of view, but also on the ecological point of view. It's like working with the world, not on the world or using the world. It's like using the world to gain a very harmonious, uh, uh, very harmonious understanding of how life is, how the universe works, how we are working as human beings, how space are functioning inside us, and how can we live all together like that. And I think the cheap people, what is interesting is that they all believe that there's this life web that really inform everything, including us. Everything is informed by this light web. At the origin of it, there's this interpolation of light on this gray spirit, as they call it, and this life force of the Great Spirit can be found in every single dot of this life web. Every single dot being those plant door plant access to this life world that we in the print are the print we diet those must have. So it's a very fascinating approach of relation to the world and understanding it.
and all native traditions believe that the plants are our ancestors. All native traditions believe. There's even studies that show that like 80% of our DNA is that of a tree. And so it's interesting that they go to these very um I guess our ancestors very similar structures for our own healing. And I love it that, Remy always says and he explains it to people that, when for them, it's a completely reversal of what we think about in the West. So if you have a palm, you take a pill and the pill heals you. But with these master plant diets, the idea is that initially you consume it, you consume the plant, and then through that consumption, you develop a connection with it. And then after the diet's over, can you go back into your world? you still are able to access the healing because you have a connection with the spirit of
Mhm.
the energy of the plant. And so if you do master plant diet and for 3 years from now, you have your depression shows back up, you're able to reconnect back to that connection, reestablish that connection, connect to the spirit, to the consciousness of the plant, and it will still be able to heal you. And so it's just really fascinating concept.
And in this regard, also, what's fascinating in the same way is that that's not the curandero that is that's not the curandero that that's the spirit of the plant. When you do diet, when you go to those places in Peru, or the way we work here, is that we are here only to facilitate the contact, the encounter. We facilitate it, and when the encounter happens, that's when the true healing is happening. And this true healing is the only sustainable, it lasts, and it's really for the. And so I think that's one aspect that has to be mentioned, because it's kind of weird and a bit hard to understand for us Westerners. This kind of spirit of plants and spirit consciousness of plant back that gives us, but that's actually a reality, and it's important to understand that, because this is not something magical or extraordinary. This should be normal. This should be our natural way of being in contact with this consciousness around us that is constantly breathing through us. We breathe with it, with it, and that's how we become feeling of it.
So I think one of the things that really drew me initially to the Amazon and ultimately to the Shipibo people uh, was I also had a deep fascination with plants and plants as medicine, as food. But I found I was working with plants more in this kind of allopathic or Western kind of herbal modality where it was still the symptom was being treated by a certain plant, and that idea that the plant had more than just physical medicine, that it also had something to teach. It there could be a direct experience with it was very fascinating to me. I think, like you said, for many Western people, that's still a very foreign concept. The idea that a plant has a spirit. I think when people begin working with plants, that's something that can be opened up to them. It could be something that's anthropomorphized. I mean, they see it as some sort of human image or a teacher or an energy or emotions that they correlate with that plant. But is that something you can maybe speak a bit about more to the person who that idea that a plant has a spirit, or that spirit can be facilitated through a certain process, and that spirit can continue to even heal them even if they're not ingesting the physical plant. I think for a lot of people it's a bit of a stretch, and maybe kind of another question that I'll segue into after, but it is this idea of cosmovision, because cosmovision is something very powerful that I think also, we often use that in kind of an indigenous sense, that it's just indigenous people who have a cosmovision, but really we all have a cosmovision, and the cosmovision that we live by or that we believe in really shapes our perception of reality as well.
Oh yeah, just one very quick thing about that is that essentially for me, without a cosmovision, consciousness is not possible. Cosmovision and consciousness are twins, or the fruit of each other, and one gives birth to the other one, but the other one gives birth to the exponent of the third one. It's a cosmovision and consciousness are hands in hands. There's no real consciousness without clear and bright cosmovision. That's I think it's we do a little philosophy, a philosophical parenthesis about that for sure. Yes, is that I think we all have inside us a subconscious vision of the that shape our entire experience of reality. Unfortunately, nowadays, it's marked by a certain by different aspect. It's still marked by a form of understanding of the human being as the Freudism or the Marxism, the communism, that all this aspect of seeing the man as a product of the society, as a product of his own emotion, as a product of his own conditioning, and eventually, more recently, the 21st century, as a product of his own brain and mental capacities and meditation. And so I think our vision of the world, our paradigm, actually doesn't really allow us to be able to look at the world like an indigenous would like to look at the world. But I don't want to say that it's not possible, because we are deep inside, even if we are born in Canada, in New York, in Stockholm, wherever in the world, like in those bigger pods, bigger cities like that, we still have inside us this indigenous fiber, which is just uh, our uh, our natural being, our natural being that try to fit inside those different paradigms of the modern world. It doesn't fit well, and that's why we don't feel comfortable. That's why we feel sick. That's why we feel unfulfilled and anxious, nervous, and that's why we still have inside this nostalgia of the original garden. This nostalgia of the original garden. It was just this nostalgia of being in a world in full communion with the world, in full participation, reciprocal participation with the world, reciprocal interaction with the world. The world is me, and I'm the world, and that's no difference. And I'm, I'm, no, I'm feeding on it, but not in a boring, voracious way. But I just welcome it inside, and I give back to him. And so this natural exchanges, breathing exchanges with the world. And so that's this big desire that we're inside that our modern society doesn't fulfill anymore with the philosophy or the model that it proposes to us. And so the indigenous people, they do believe that there is what we see with our eyes, but this what we see with our eyes is not the real reality. I think for the people who there's an example that in this movie for Matrix, they tend to use this concept a little bit to go in a different way than the indigenous would go. But this is what what I'm seeing with my eyes. This is not all. This is just in fact a pattern. What my senses are giving me as a stimulation from the world, as an information from the world, is not all of the reality. And for the indigenous, this aspect of reality is the least important. The more important, what's real, really real, I would say like them, it's this suprasensible world. And that's very interesting in this regard, because there's many philosophical traditions that say that. For example, Plato saying the world of the ideas are like informing reality. What's the primordial is the ideas, of course. The archetypism, archetypes, archetypes of young, of the common soul, that the soul of the world that inform from below like that our reality, that are more important in a way than just the manifestation. You have the matrix, the esoterical matrices that are the same. Those ideas that are there is things behind the senses that are informing what we're saying, and are trying to tell us something through what we're saying. And so for the indigenous, that's how they see the earth. That's how they see one beyond our senses, beyond what I'm experiencing. For my five senses here, there is a greater reality. There is a boundless world, a limitless world, in which the Great Spirit is informing reality. True. And so this suprasensible zone, if you want, area, that's where the spirit of the Spirit is. But it doesn't mean, and that we enter into a different chapter that will probably require a different podcast. That doesn't mean that in this world, beyond our senses, everything is perfect and everything is great, and all the spirit how to
And and so do you feel like that a lot of these indigenous traditions and these kind of um, I think you mentioned master plants or plants of knowledge, plants of power. Do you think these are tools that help humans to be able to move beyond their five senses, to get in touch with this unseen world?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think one of the reasons they exist on Earth is really to remind us. That's very interesting that when you do a plant diet, you have probably the experience of yourself. One of the very first thing that happens to you is that having dreams of people that you haven't think about it for like decades, decades, like long time ago, since start remembering stuff like so long time ago. And in fact, the mistake we make is like, oh, I should reach out with this brain because it's been like 25 years since I thought about this person. I should reach out because I just dreamed about. But what the plant are telling us in this moment is just our faculty of remember. Remember. And what is they say when they say remember? Remember all the faculty that you have learned. And those faculties, most of them, are not fantastic. They are not powers, like they would say in our superhero, our time that we are trying to that we live in. Those all those superhero movies, they're not powers. They're just natural abilities of different way of perceiving the world. And so those plants are truly here to help us to perceive the world with a greater anger, with a greater sensibility, with a greater capacity of feeling the world, and also of vision of seeing the world. So definitely.
Yeah.
And I really do believe so. Also, in a very simple way, in a way that plants are very sensitive. They're actually very sensitive. They also have a language. They communicate through the information to each other. Trees communicate information to each other, and so those plants try to make us develop a very vegetal sensitivity. And so that's very interesting to see how the whole Shipibo cosmovision has been shaped by the proximity, by the vicinity, and also by the work with those plants, and has developed a very, almost, when we say almost a very organic liquid cosmovision, vision of the world. Not, this is not a system. This is something that is evolving, that is mending, that is changing himself, and it manifests himself. His cosmovision as a consciousness, it manifests itself in the language that it was sophisticated to a point when it's harder than a point. The more sophisticated it is, the more poetical it is, and the more medicinal it is too. So it's a really crossing all those different barriers. And so if you want, those plants that we take are giving us the sensitivity to be capable of reconnecting with those ancient abilities that we had, to be in touch with those different layers of the universe. And so, doing so, they develop also a clearer cosmovision of the clearer perception of the world, and also they develop us a better way to express us, a better language, a better way to be, and a better way to share.
So when you're dieting plants, one of I think maybe it was Ashley. You use this word master plants, which I think is often translated from plantas maestras, like these teacher plants, master plants, plants of knowledge, plants of power. For you all, what does that mean? Like, what separates a master plant from any plant, or all plants master plants? But it's the way that we work with them, or there's certain plants that traditionally through this deeper knowledge, through this technology, are seen as kind of gateways or portholes to moving beyond our normal senses. What categorizes certain plants in that way?
Well, one of those, is the relationship they have with beings. As we'll be talking about, that there's some plants and trees that are been working with humans for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, if not thousands of years. And so there is this interspecies dialogue that's very present. And so when you kind of ask something of a tree, it understands, especially if you're using the typical language. They respond very, very well to what you're asking, to the command of what you're trying to do. So I think that's one of the gauges to it. I also think that there's a certain class of plants and trees that are just kind of higher consciousness beings. I guess that's the way to say it. Ones that are able to not only feel but also to teach.
And there are also such thing as a concept of enlightened being, as it be, for example, there's big are considered as enlightened beings, and so that's very interesting. Like all those enlightened people that people are following and learning from gurus and spiritual teachers and everything. But for the Shipibos, they have the this understanding as an enlightened being, as a free being, and be an enlightened. So they want to learn from it as well as they learn from for the Shipibo, and mostly that's more clear for the Ashaninkas. Ashaninka means people, and Ashaninka, when he talk about a tree or talk about an animal, he say, "Oh, is people like us?" Is an Ashaninka this way. Is an Ashaninka this animal. We say that there are people like us. They have their own consciousness. They have their own feelings. They have their own understanding of the world. They have their own knowledge of the world, and you would learn from them. Yeah.
You both use this very interesting word, technology, and I think the deeper people go, and not even necessarily deep. I mean, sometimes it can happen right away. Someone does a dieta, and they often describe this experience where they feel like they're being taught or they're being worked on by some sort of technology, some sort of higher being, something even in a different dimension, a different cosmos. Uh, I think that's one aspect in which people use that word. That there's this very advanced technology that's being worked with. I think also people will use that word in kind of the overall holistic mechanism that's being worked with, much like we would use someone who's working in a scientific field, that they're working with a very advanced technology. I think for a lot of people who maybe aren't familiar with this work, that idea that this work is a technology, an advanced technology, can seem quite foreign. Could you all speak about that idea? Because it was interesting because you both at different points used that word when you were describing this work.
I think what we try to translate in our vocabulary, in our English vocabulary, is this this sense that we can have when we drink the ayahuasca of meeting something very advanced that almost know better about yourself that you being yourself about yourself. And so when you say advanced technologies, that this meta rationality, this rationality beyond the mind, that is like very coherent, very that makes sense, and then that really talk about things that you understand, that you are absolutely beyond and cool or you that resonate with you, but are like coming from plants. So they're like that's why we like to talk about technologies and approximation. We talk about this knowledge, this deep knowledge that taking those plants uh, is going to put you in the experience of something. It's no doubt that you don't understand that then the perception of the human being with his somatic aspect, with his emotional aspect, with his spiritual aspect, with his mental aspect, all those different aspects are understood by those plants and also by that spirit. And so when they start teaching us or healing us, they're in the back feeling wow, the knowledge and this medicine. So this science that is that the experience translates me. The silence is very apparent.
Especially, and it's interesting too, it could get like technology, as he was saying, it's not in the Western mind that they could get profound, but it's in the term of a very advanced practice, a very advanced concept, a very advanced relationship. Um, Even for me, the way that curanderos or people practitioners, Ayahuasqueros or Ayuneros or however they work, that you spend a long time in a very aesthetic way of life, right? And so you're in isolation, you're eating very simply, very minimally, and you spend long periods of time in this experience, right? Taking a plant or a tree to acquire the healing and learning the knowledge from that tree that will allow you to be able to handle an ayahuasca ceremony or perform a healing with effectiveness, right? And so, even in that, when we break it down, what we're doing is we're acquiring the medicinal energy from a specific plant or tree, and with that medicinal energy, we're acquiring certain frequencies in our voice, certain vibrations in our songs. So when we do a healing on a person, we're able to modify their emotional body, their psychological body, the physical body, the energetic body. We're able to kind of go in there because of the vibrations we have acquired from these plants of fruit. And because our bodies are almost 80% made of water, they're extremely receptive to the vibrational changes. And so even that whole concept there is a very advanced concept. It's very advanced, but on the other end, it's a very basic concept as well. It's where we are able to heal with vibration, which is a very
Introvert.
ancient wisdom. And so, or even before that concept for me is it's a very cultivated home technology that we're able to do that. And the more plants, the more trees you diet goes through this process of dieting, the more you acquire. Um, we can talk about having this library inside of us. The more medicinal energy you acquire, it's we say you acquire more um, vibrations, more frequencies in your saw to be able to be more effective in your healing. We always talk to people about many people they sing here in Iowa to a ceremony. They have undergone this process. They have beautiful songs, no doubt, but to be able to modify, heal, clean, and hide all these different things inside the different bodies that we're working in. It requires going through this deep process, which is, as he said, a very ancient process. It's a period of fasting. It's a period of isolation. It's a period of being a hermit, essentially, and going deep within to the connection with these breaths and these medicinal.
So for both of you, what was that process like? Of, um, I mean, Remy, you said you were initially going down for curiosity, almost even to disprove this. Ashley, you were going down for your own healing, your own kind of change of life. At what point do you both begin to see or to feel or to sense that this is something that I want to devote my life to? This is something that I can see myself doing. There, you feel within that that there's some calling. Like what is that? What does that look like for both of you?
For me, in fact, Jason, is that it has never been something I wanted. I was interested in this seek of knowledge, this quest of knowledge, and this discovery. One thing that I'm be driven by is this incredible curiosity for life and for the different aspect of life. And so I was just going all in into this process of learning, and I became, and at some point, I've been asked to sing for people. I never decided by myself. Maybe, okay, this is what I want to do, and this is what I want to be. I've been asked to do it, And so for many years, to be honest with you, I fight it. I didn't want. I didn't want to do that. Probably at the beginning, also in that's a reason of like I just like the monastery. I want peaceful life. I don't want to put myself in the spotlight, whatever. And that's why in psychology. But but probably also at this time early on, I was already getting the difficulties of this art, the the danger and the difficulties of his path. And probably I was fighting it so consciously, fighting the fantasy, the, the, the sacerdoce, comme dans ce paquet de people. You understand what I mean? The priesthood that we represent. And it's not something that we can do all occasionally like that. If you do it, it's a lifetime. It's all about you. And it's not, and so we get to this point where I was capable of doing it in the proper way. Not just many years of studying with the plant dimension, but also making it for me to sing with the energy that it requires for me to be able to perform this proper work. And so it was hard for me to, okay, everybody wants to have a life, wants to enjoy life and to follow and to experiment. When you work with experience, yes, you can do that, but you are also a service to the community. A responsibility. I always say, people ask me, what is your point of view? My answer is always very simple. I tell them, well, imagine something. You have a very strong figure because you have malaria. And there is this woman in front of you, in front of the mat, that's crying, and is need your help. And in Maloka, you have someone that has caused you lots of problems, almost someone that you qualify as your enemy, but is here to require your help. What are you going to do? You gotta go. You gotta help this woman, and you gotta help this. And when you're frozen, triggers such thing, there's all your heart. That's a real deal. And that's where it's not easy to do. Plus, I don't go too deep into the deep end the life of a girl where the husband would be with a poor spirit, like they have to get with in several meters. Sometimes are weak, sometimes are not. And so we have to. That's where our lifestyle has required me years of sinking into the responsibility and the energy and the mentality, the emotions, and the whole physicality that is needed to perform this service. And that's why I don't judge anymore people that start walking on this path and at some point to drop it, because I would say no.
And how about for you, Ashley?
Um, well, so mine was just, as I mentioned, just it was that idea of just feeling, and as by many people know that, like once you start kind of excavating the healing, the lifetime, they're the lifetime. And so that was my focus. And also for I think the self discovery, the self growth, the self change that was happening because of the medicine and the experiences we were getting. That was enough for me. I was completely fulfilled with that. Um, we had Kumankaya for about 2 years. And Remy was doing exclusively all the healing. So he was singing all the intros for the guests, um and we had like about incidents where he gotten very sick. He got COVID twice, and he just wasn't healing very well. His grandfather died, and that was on a Thursday. And Remy had to do ceremony for him because there was no one else scared to help him, and the place was full with guests as well. And so there became very clear a need for someone to help Remy as well. And so, I did my near friendship, and again, always my focus was on the healing because, the way I think about it as well is there's no bypassing the healing. If you wanna get to the learning, you have to go through the healing. That which you heal in yourself also becomes that which you can heal others. He always says that, I love it. You have to prime yourself for something before you can heal others. And so was going down to learn, of course, but there's also traumas that I really wanted to delve very deeply into and sit with for a big time. Um, and so that was kind of the impetus behind the year apprenticeship. And as I said, it was just a fundamental need we had in Kaya, a fundamental need that he needed, where if one of us were to get sick, or if, God forbid he had another death in the family, that someone could have step in and take care of the guests that were here while the other person took care of, you know, the reality of our lives as well. And so um we becoming a practitioner and healer, it was kind of by default, but it happened very naturally and very um gracefully. And I would say that this is the most fulfilling time of my life, actually. And so I am very, very happy to be of service in this way.
So you mentioned this idea of apprenticeship. It's in a lot of these traditional paths, they have this idea of apprenticeship, and obviously not just in indigenous practices. I mean, it was kind of the foundation of all work was this idea of apprenticing. Um, what was that like? What was that experience like of apprenticing? I would imagine dietas, and maybe can you all speak about like what is that process of beginning to learn? It's obviously as you said, there's a learning for ourselves through our own processes, through crying, through understanding these things, so that we can begin to help others. But what is that process like of actually beginning to learn how to navigate that space, how to work on people? Was that things that you felt the predominantly the plants taught you? Because usually in any apprenticeship, you're also apprenticing with someone.
Mhm.
I would imagine in your case, probably Ricardo. What was his role in facilitating that, in teaching you? Like what I think that idea of apprenticeship really it really resonates with people. I think a big part of where so many people are lost is because we have forgotten these forms, these traditions, these ways of being that give us guidance, that give us some sort of responsibility of a role. So in the way that you all trained, what did that look like, the apprenticeship that
So,
you both did?
if I can answer in this way, it was, I would say that so when you do, let's start by what become when you are there. In the Shipibo tradition, uh, when you are done your apprenticeship diet and everything and start working as a practitioner, you are called an unaya. Unaya means the one who knows. And I want to start by that because what is the one who know? The one who know is the initiative, the one who has been initiated. And I think we are all in our Western understanding of this, this, this memoir, but all in all ancient tradition speak about an initiation. In Christianism, the initiation is the baptism. In emissary, the religion of the emissary, it will be initiated practice. So the initiation is something that we have lost a little bit of sight in our modern world, and that should be put back in a way in the front of the scene. That in a certain amount of time, in certain practices that I'm going to do, and that will give me a certain proper life initiate. You understand? And so for the initiation is what we call the diet, or apprenticeship diet. Those are initiative kind where you take plans, you're going to learn about yourself, you're going to be given tools, whether it's mental tools, emotional tools, or even energetical tools to be able, once your diet is finished, to be able to accompany. So once you became initiated by the plan, and by those that may never seen, and by the spirit of the plan, once we get initiated by them, then you can perform the EV and give back the community. Because if each initiating one doesn't give back, it disinitiation will happen. His initiation is incomplete. You understand?
And one of the interesting things I think that you mentioned in the beginning, when you were in this Christian monastery, was kind of this idea of isolation, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this idea of maybe being cut off from the world. It's interesting in that these initiatory experiences, what you also both mentioned was that there's these prolonged periods of isolation. But also, one of the interesting things about eventually stepping into that role is it's kind of maybe different from that idea of maybe this Eastern guru archetype who's off alone in a cave, isolated from people. Like very much the role of a healer, of an unaya, someone who knows, is to also share that knowledge, to help his people, to help his community. Um, you also mentioned you were maybe quite hesitant to do that because it was maybe kind of antithetical to your character of wanting to be more isolated. What do you think is that role, or that power of beginning to step into one's power, beginning to step into a role where people are coming to you and asking for help, and then being able to have the knowledge or the responsibility to begin to do that? Because I think that's something also that more and more as this work it goes out into a bigger audience, is people do feel drawn to want to do it. But also, as you said, there's a great responsibility. There's a lot of dangers and difficulties in this path. So, what do you think it's like for people to begin to step into that role? Um, like it seems like maybe there's an overemphasis on people wanting to do that. And so, what is that balance of really feeling that inner calling, or as you said, that something that came to you that really started to tell you, like, you maybe you need to do this, maybe this is your role, maybe you do need to step into this power. I know it's kind of a vague question, but it's, there's usually something in there in one's process where one is being asked to step into a role, to begin to work with these tools. And I think for a lot of people, that's sometimes kind of a vague thing, or they struggle with that of really stepping into a new role, because also with that new role is a very great responsibility.
Yeah, that's why I think also when I didn't answer to the previous question, that's why the maestro, the one on me, the unit to the organization, can do it, is very important also. So you will like them because essentially, what is a Puga Dev? I don't like the term shaman because it means everything and nothing at the same time. And in our in wage time like that, and it's very understood in ways that I can understand myself. I prefer Kumandro, which will just be a vaccine. What is essentially either Kumandero or medicine Kumandera is a good guy, a good woman. You cannot be a good Kumandero, but you're not a good man to start with. It's impossible. And so when we are people that comes to the field of the Dutch, we try to lead them on this path of becoming first good human being. And from this, we can grow as curandero, as curandera. But that's the basis is very important. Also, for curandero is not so much, I know that in some tradition, it's called a man of power, a man of power or woman of power. But I prefer to say more a man of service. Is the Pulandero receive strength from those super sensible zone of light where the spirit of the plant are. That's where he gets his life force. That's where he gets his knowledge. And from there, he gets the strength to serve. He doesn't get the power for himself just like that. You get the strength, you need the force to be able to serve people. So when people come here to learn, We always came before, yes, okay, do you want to do? We want to keep on the curandero, shaman, excellent. We want to start by facilitating. And we will start by facilitating. What is facilitating? Facilitating is sweeping the moral people. It's make sure that everybody has his own development, that everybody has his own little ashtray, that he has his own little toilet paper, but talk to the people, get interested with them. Get out of your own self. First, you have to learn the golden moon that will follow you until the end of your service on the playlist like that, which is yourself. It's not about developing myself, developing ability, developing some capacity. It's developing more capacity of serving people, more empathy, more understanding of their situation, more capacity of listening to others. That's what a Kurandero pass with the light that we have, and with the light of God. And so it's a I really salute that nowadays there's lots of people to only do that. Most of the time it's not really understood what's the real role of the Kurandero, but they can discover as they're learning prayer. And as I said, I don't judge anymore people who give up on this was because it's not anything. And it's not because you cannot go all the way through that you do not walk really people in this path.
I would not emphasize healing because for for me, and I think for us to be a good medicine there, good medicine, we can't bypass the gift because it's only through that way is your pain not greater than hers. Only through that way are you able to serve, actually heal. Yeah, and so we know. We've seen a lot of people, want to get into the medicine because it'll give them stats. It'll make them still on in the rule. And so they do these diets and they acquire a lot of meds. And we say over and over again, like we had just said, true medicine man or true medicine woman isn't because you have a lot of medicine. It's because you're a good person. And we say over and over again, there's a lot of people with a lot of medicine in the world, but there's not a lot of true medicine men because you can't be a healer at night and then turn around and smoke cannabis illuminized during the day. It's a complete alignment of every aspect of your life with who you are in Maloka, Konatsalika, how you live. It's that you live the entire life. And that, as he's mentioned, that was kind of the hardest part of the responsibility that we were resistant to for a little while and have finally kind of gotten in alignment with is that it's all aspects of your life. It's all aspects of your character. And everything is devoted in the service of the best person you can possibly be 24/7. There's no off time where you can, get grandma and run over a dog. There's nothing like that that can happen. It's all full alignment with your attitudes, your beliefs, your values, system, your actions, the words you speak. And so your emotions, yeah. And also too the responsibility too, because if you come into this line of work with an immense amount of anger still in your heart, the more medicine, the more plant guides you do, the more um, I guess energy you acquire that empowers those native emotions. So even more to say that the deeper you get into the kind of work, the more you have that sovereignty over your emotions. The more healing you have to do to make sure that your anger is you are God over your anger, your jealousy, your negative thoughts, your propensity, your envy, your propensity to engage in indiscretions. The deeper you get into the medicine work, the more you have to have all that because all of those are equally more empowered as well.
And so, in this regard, what people don't really understand is that we hear many times it's like, oh yeah, curandero slash shaman, they're not only people. They're just doctor. I say, yeah, you're right. They're always they should be ones. They should walk on the path of good healing. They should walk on the path of wholeness. They should not be strive. They should not be strive because but that's so when you do those initiatic times, you become a lunalia, one in knows. But after that, when you keep going, keep going, there's a superior level. That's called the Muraya. The Murayas are like those holy people that I need to like serving people to the medicine and by achieving plant and reach the enlightenment through plants and through their prayers. And also to explain to the people very precisely what is a curandero. So just someone who takes ayahuasca, they plants and see that night. No. Very precise function. A curandero first is someone who has mastered the ayahuasca, the music, the one who knows the effect and the whole range of variety of effect, and able to help people that are going through the same effects through sound. That's the first role of ayahuasca, of the ayahuasca. The second is was master the medicine coming from the Greek trees, mostly from the trees, paledo, as we say in Spanish. The one was master the medicine of the trees and also the plant. Yeah, when what does it mean? It means that develop contact and relationship, a collaboration with the spirit of the trees that he has divinity and that he brings into his ceremony. He performs what he did. For me, motivated didn't happen on this time for people nowadays was easier only because of my background. Is an August release time, which means in music, a man prayer is a man on his medicine, a booty, and the source of everything in the original primordial fruit of all living form, which is the brain spirit, named as we want, that is developed is a connection through God, through a response with prayers, so we can perform easily through this channel, not a channel with angel, with some other entities like that, the only channel that a poor zero should accept is a channel was for original. And finally, this younger man was a perform, was a master at the use of prayer, who's capable of perfuming people, cleaning energies to people once his connection to God has released those spirit affecting people that he can put instead of those bad energies with energy through his perfume, through his plagas. So it's some is a, and also I forget the last point, but the points like the curandero is like the he has 5 3 years. The last one is the one who has mastered the people. He used tobacco intentionally and has developed a relationship, a living relationship with spirit of tobacco that is in his ceremony as his spirit guide, as his spirit as a helper, and also as a teacher. And to curandero should master all those 5 points. Ayahuasca, the great diets initiative by so he's not mostly powerful plants. The prayers, right prayer on a daily basis, living in deep in the conscious in the conscious of the presence of God constantly, the pursuit and the path. That's the calendar of the curandero. That's how we become a curandero or curandero. It's not just a desire that we are. It's a responsible with cosmic function. There are priests back in the days in the ancient societies of power. There were priests, doctors, they were like functions, social functions that were also cosmic and symbolic archetypal functions that were very important. Where it belonged there is none of that.
Yeah, beautiful. One of the interesting things, I think many people who don't realize, not only within the Shipibo, but within many traditional societies within the Amazonian basin, is they've many, not all, but many individuals have also adopted Christianity through the mixing of Spanish and Portuguese. It's interesting, Remy, that you also spent time in a monastery. I would imagine quite infused in ideas of Christianity. It's something that many indigenous people have adopted. I think a lot of people from the West look at it through maybe this lens of colonization, and that it's a bad thing that these people have been kind of forced into a certain way of viewing the world that may not be their own. But I think for many indigenous people, they view these as complementary or even symbiotic, or even just a different lens to look at eternal truths. Um, what is your experience of that meshing or molding of these two traditions, of this more traditional Amazonian vegetalismo or curanderismo, infused and maybe enhanced or dehanced, I guess, depending on one's view of how that joins with Christianity, and how those two can work together.
Well, I think, Jason, that uh, originally the Amerindian rationality, whether it's in Northern America or Southern America, in the Peru, Colombia, or Brazil, all those countries around the Amazonian forest, the original rationality was inclusive. Someone right with his belief system, and the attitude wasn't to defend itself against it. What we recognize are reading the same. You just have different work for it. And so when the missionary arrived, actors, it was a form of, oh, you claim the father of everything. Yes, we do. Our father, son, which is not the son itself, but it's a symbolic way to name God for the people. The son is a symbolic way to talk about God. It's not an animism. It's really responding that it's a symbolic speaking. And then after that, this time, things have changed. And now there's some kind of more rigid attitude, which is not inclusive anymore. The original spiritual attitude of the Amerindians was inclusive. Nowadays, it's exclusive. Different territories, whether it's like cultural territories, whether it's physical territory, geographical territories, they try to defend it. And so I don't think that was the original way. The original way was a more inclusive, open-minded, where everything served the same purpose. Myself, I think it's a more healthy way. I'd rather be this way where we all, not because of my only personal background, but it's also because I think that's the real way, what we call the philosophia perennis, the account wisdom that is the eludating the humankind, sorry, and the world is not exclusive. It's all inclusive. It's growing from its own flow as it's going. And so I think our attitude when I see people that are using Shipibo tradition, Christianism, or mestizo tradition and Christianism, for me, it's not a problem. I think it's a very healthy thing. It's a very healthy way because we Westerners want categories. Ah, if it's indigenous, it cannot be Christian. If it's Christian, it cannot be indigenous. It has to be categorized by that. This is not our land for. Life doesn't enter people's seas. Life is a continuous flow and perpetual flow of things that goes in the all boxes. And so I think it's way much more time for us to enter a very adult, mature way of understanding the human being with his religious practices and stop separate. This is very immature to separate. You can understand what I mean? It's just a matter of different vocabulary, different language used to describe the unique human experience. Experience, an human experience, which is one. That is my relationship to God. It's a form of the human consciousness, whether I'm an indigenous or whether I'm a Protestant or whether I'm the Buddhist or Hindus. You understand what I mean? It's a form of the human experience. And so it's important to and think that. And it's more healthy to have an open personality that is not mixing everything and not speaking about syncretism. I'm speaking about a syncretism where everything becomes or organic element of my personality that are harmoniously working together and are equal me my perception of the my perception of the. And if you want uh my personal period, it's like I still am one Christian and still pray, and we have a change that. Because I mean, if there's one either amongst all leaders that this earth have produced, is it Jesus Christ that could heal with his hand, that could like heal blind people, that could heal dead people, resurrect the dead and everything. So it's that if you look at the life of Christ through the lens of a Kurandere eye, you're like, but then that's the maximum like it could be. You understand? The the doctor were excellent, maximum doctor. That's how the indigenous was looking at it when they started reading the scripture. It's like, wow, this one was the greatest Messiah of all time. But some they were saying, it was the greatest Kumankaya, the greatest Messiah. And the missionary were like, yeah, this see Jesus Christ, some of what. So they were like, okay. But nowadays we are like, time to wait. There's all this movement of decolonization and you go back to the original root. This is very immature. This is not possible anymore. Will it be in a time where everything has to be nuanced and everything has to be in communication? You understand?
Yeah, very much. There's a beautiful word in Shipibo, hakun, which is usually translated to good. Uh, but as a dear friend was kind of explaining to me, when you look at it, that idea of good, it also has this idea of truth to it,
With
and often what truth on an even deeper level, it's this idea of something that's life giving, it's unifying, and that which is hakun mu is that which is not good because it's not true. It's separating from life. It's not inclusive. I think so many people today look at the world in this very reductionist way of looking at the color of people's skins or where they're from or the history. And of course there can be some use to that, but it is a very divisive way of looking at the world. um, um, a guy who I know, he works for ICERS. His name is Geronimo. He said it very beautifully, and it always really stuck to me. He said when the Europeans came to the indigenous in South America, 500 years ago, 400 years ago, the Europeans looked at the indigenous and they said they're too indigenous. They need to be more European. They need to be more civilized. And that today it's often that same mentality where you look at the indigenous people, and those same people will say, well, now they're too civilized, they're too westernized, they need to be more indigenous. And I think it's kind of pointing to that point that you also said, which is that all of these traditions are fluid. They're not static. They're always changing. They're incorporating. They're learning. How for both of you do you find that balance of kind of people being from a certain place outside of the Amazon, um, learning very deeply this technology, and then also to some degree incorporating it into who you are, which is people from outside that cosmovision. Do you find there's benefits to that, or are there drawbacks to that? Um, it's also very interesting. I mean, one of my teachers, he's a guy from a group in the Colombian Amazon and the Apaporis River, the Valpes region. His name is Amika. Comes from a group of people called the Tubu, and for the Tubu, they actually say this is the time of the Diro Amasa, the children of the new dawn. It's the people who come in all shapes and sizes, but they're able to to bridge the medicine of the four directions. And I think it's a very powerful prophecy and also cosmovision, because it's also saying that every direction has medicine, and that none of these medicines are inherently better or more or less, but it's really about this ability to bridge these different medicines to create a new Maloka, to create a new earth, to bring about something that's new, that's special, and that has the ability to heal the earth. I guess this again is a big question, and maybe a bit vague, but how do you find your roles as kind of Western people, but who've really learned and mastered this particular tradition, while at the same time blending it with who you are, with your own stories, with your own cosmovisions? Is it something that you feel you're also creating something new? Do you Yeah, because I think a lot of people also, there's some sort of cognitive break that happens when you're really rooted in a tradition such as the Shipibo tradition, and yet you're also practicing, I would imagine, in your own way. You're also recreating something, making something new, much like this prophecy speaks about. Can you speak a bit about your own work and how that looks, and what you draw upon, and what tools you use to do your work?
Is I mean, what I'm thinking about, Jason, when you're talking is that I would give you the answer to this question in 2046, in 25 years. When I will be at the article of that, when I will get back to that, I will be able to tell you how I did that. But right now, I'm not questioning myself. And what I'm trying to do is to be very, very, very humble and trying to learn indigenous tradition, to see how an indigenous man, Kurandero, perceive the world, how he's experiencing the world, how he's learning from the world this way, and also by staying myself, Westerners. This capacity of going back and forth like a pendulum, of not just changing your mental activity, but changing your entire mentality, your entire culturality, your entire sensitivity, to be able to do the pendulum like that between those two different universes are both very enriching each side. Like going more deeper into and indigenous who hybridize myself, hybridize myself by that into this tradition has given me a complete different new light on my Westernity of Occidentality. You know what I mean? And also in way much more respect for you, because there is excellent spelling. We have excellent philosophical traditions. We have lots of good things that are still capable of helping people and bringing them up, to the light and to more light. And when I'm in my Western aspect of it, I discover that it is the richness of this indigenous rationality, which is a very specific rationality. It's not our academic score or rationality. It's a completely different way of being. And those two are really enriching them. How do I reach that? I don't ask myself this question. I don't try insert organic synthesis as I'm going. I will be able to answer those questions in many years, in many decades or two, when I will have been able to build that fully to a perfect harmonious synthesis. And so I'm not asking you the first question. How do I work? To answer directly your last question, is that how do I work? That when I am talking to you right now, I'm trying to translate for me the experience of that I can from the learning from the plant in a very ambiguous way in a Shipibo tradition. To translate into Western world for the purpose of our dialogue and the purpose of explaining to people and clarifying to people. When I drink ayahuasca, this mind stop. Stop. This stop. I put it into a little box on the side, and I'm purely in the deceiver, practicing his heart in his climax and his joy, his dedication, his hard work, even if you're sick, even if you don't feel good, even if you are a little bit frustrated in your life, when you put when you put the glass of ayahuasca to your lips, you are eating, and the plant entering this one observing the people with the medicine and reconnecting all the past Mr.
Yeah. So you all are in the you're near Tulum, or you're somewhere in the Yucatan Peninsula
Most
of
right now, I
Mexico.
come to do down south. So, in
Hmm.
the close to Tango, Felipe Carifoto, we really would like you to visit us one day.
And sorry, you just cut out. I just missed the last thing you said.
I was saying, Jason, that we would really like you to visit us one day.
Oh, I would be honored. That would be beautiful. That would be beautiful. You have a center, Kumankaya. Can you speak a bit about that? If people are interested in coming down, what is that process like? What do you offer? Why are people coming down to visit you?
Um, so I think, well, but they kind of ethos behind Kumankaya is the idea that when you Remy always really appreciated kind of old school uh healing tradition, which is when you went somewhere with break healing, you went to the Curandero's house, and so we kind of based it off that concept that when you come here, you're basically coming to a home. Remy and I are always here, 10 months of the year, we're here. We'll have basically the same staff. And so of staff is our family. And so the atmosphere, as I mentioned, like a near route, you're going to a village. But the concept behind Himapai is you're coming to a family. And so especially for those guests who have come back several times, returners, we bring them at the door. They know Consuelo, our cook in the kitchen, they hear Segi calling it. They know Jesus, they've been know the for years. And so the idea that you're embraced and embarked into a community, um, that's one of kind of the living ethos behind who we are. We're a fairly small retreat center. We have 8 bungalows. So if everybody's in a single room at max, we have 8 guests, and that's also very intentional as well. We want to keep the ceremony space small so we can really give everybody the personalized intention that they need and just be very present to the people. Um, and I think that I believe that's something. Yeah, so I think that that's what I don't know, we try to invite the people to experience that, and also when they leave, it's not, they walk out the door and goodbye, good luck. We're also checking with them. We also kind of follow them, and so they also have the support community once they leave here as well. And yeah, so I think that's one of the things that we're really proud of. That's really unique to Bedigay versus we really value the fact and have um, emphasize the fact that people are really seeking. Their pain is seen, their process is seen, and it's fully supported by my husband and I and by the staff that we have on campus as well. Oh, and then I was gonna say also, as you guys are talking, we also kind of try to synthesize, we understand what it is to be a Westerner, the experience of being a Westerner in the West, and living in kind of the concretization, modernized world. And so we try to synthesize the Western practices with the traditional practices as well. So though it is mostly ayahuasca and it's master plant diet and it's encourage you to be in isolation, to meditate, to journal. We also offer yoga. We all offer breath work and meditation. So people can acquire practices that they can take with them when they leave here. Practices that allow them to stay grounded in their body, stay connected to this experience, practices that allow them to continue to move the energies to process their experiences. Maybe here, yeah. And our boot sharings are also integration sessions. So you had this experience, you received this teaching. Now, how do you bring it into real life? How do you bring that into practice? So it's not just this crazy experience you had one night and it just exists in the abstract, and said, how do you integrate that so you can move forward and that will be something that changes who you are, aspect of your life, or the way you go about doing things in behavior.
And you have specific dates, specific retreats that you're running, or people can come anytime?
Anytime. We usually do seasons. And so this season was
Well, next season will be coming June, from June to
end of March.
end of March.
And then we'll take 3 months break and then we'll do 8 months again. So that's normally how we do. It's so yeah, we're open. We have the ability to do private retreats. And so if an individual can bring 8 people or more, they themselves that both come for free, that they can actually customize their healing experience. And so they can have the full ayahuasca spirit and ayahuasca ceremonies during the week. They can for 10 days or more. They can also include a master plant diet. They can plan a local trip to a snow cave that's nearby, kind of little excursion. And so we also offer the private retreat experience to people as well.
Yeah, amazing. And if people want to reach out to you, the best way is through your website or some other means?
You can do our website's www.humankaya.com, or they can email me directly at info@humankaya.com.
Okay.
And also Paul.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
And I say also Paul's on social media. Facebook is Kumankaya Healing Center. And then Instagram is at Kumankaya. We're very active on social media. And so that kind of gives people a glimpse into the life here. You know, what daily life is like at Kumankaya and just kind of our vibe. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, amazing. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you'd like to share as we begin to wrap this up?
No, I was very happy to meet you, Jason. I was very, very happy to meet you. And so you gave me even more interest in listening to the other podcast you did. You did one about the tobacco that I'm very, very interested in it. And so I'll let you know about it.
Yeah. Thank you again for making time for us.
Sounds good. Well, yeah. Well, it was a pleasure meeting you both. I've met a few people who know you or worked with you, and they've all just had really positive things to say, and I think that's really a testament to what you're doing. And thank you for coming on and sharing. I think and hope the audience will get a lot out of this. It's I think quite rare to have people on who've really gone deep into this work, and so I really honor all of the years you've been doing this, the sacrifice and the responsibility, and as you said, it very much is a path of service. So thank you for your service and sharing. Um, I know words and dialogue is sometimes not the best way to share this, but hopefully some people got some glimpses and insights. And thank you for what you're doing. And I'll put a link to all of those in the show notes. And hopefully this will be out in about a month. But thank you very much. I mean, I think we could probably talk for hours, but maybe for another time we can do another episode. But thank you very much to you both for your presence, for your work, and for coming on and sharing.
Thank you, man, also for what you're doing, because you're really dedicated to spreading the word like that of plant medicine through your podcast and stuff. And I can imagine how I've been working this. And so thank you also for what you're doing, because you're probably reaching lots of people that needs help and stuff and find some resources through you. So yeah, I mean, everybody that listens to your podcast that we know, we're very happy with that. Very like saying, "Oh yeah, you should listen to this." Yeah.
Well, thank you. It's people like you who I think make the podcast good. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate your time and your knowledge. It's beautiful to speak with people who have a knowledge of this work. So thank you again. All right, everyone, that's it. I hope you enjoyed that conversation. It was a pleasure for me to sit down and speak with them. As I mentioned, I think they have a lot of very deep wisdom, and I don't think there's so many people actually doing this work who've gone to the depths that they have in spending the time and the dedication, the effort, the reciprocity that's really involved in really being able to handle and to work with these plants. So I really honor their work. I hope you enjoyed that. As always, if you're able to support this podcast, that's a really big help to me. Patreon is a really good option. It's a website. You can sign up for as little as $1 a month. There's different tiers that you can sign up for. Those tiers also give you different things back, things like early access to shows, bonus material, Q&As. As always, to all the people supporting that way, I really appreciate your support. It's a really big help. It's often a lot of work doing all these things. So if you feel you're able to give back and to support reciprocally, I very much appreciate it. If you're not, just helping with the algorithms is also super beneficial. So if you're viewing this on YouTube or YouTube or Rumble, subscribing to the show, turning on the notification bell, liking the video, those things are super helpful. And if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, leaving a starred rating and a short review is very helpful. So I think that's it. As I mentioned in the intro, I'm actually not sure who my following guests after this is. I have quite a few people who I'm talking to, still trying to figure out the schedule. As always, I hope to continue to bring on really fascinating guests. Also, if you're interested in working with myself and my colleague Merav Artzi, as I mentioned in the intro, our February dieta in Peru, by the time this is released, may be sold out. We have, I think, 2 spots left, but you can certainly check on my website, nicotianarustica.org. And then we have 2 upcoming retreats in the summertime in Europe, which we do still have space left for. We're going to be kind of in the countryside around Porto Covo in Portugal, I believe end of April, and then we'll be in Westport in Ireland, a really beautiful location, I believe July 1st. So that's a beautiful opportunity to really learn experientially from these plants, the healing, the learning, the teaching from them. So you can find out more information on my website. So thank you all for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope this finds you all well, and I will see you all on the next episode.
Tunga